While the Tesla cars have seen phenomenal success all across the world, one country that continues to be an exception is India. But the Indian government has recently announced a new policy that can potentially orchestrate the arrival of Tesla in India.
Today, the Commerce Ministry has come out with this new EV manufacturing policy. It's been formally announced.
The government of India has now officially rolled out a red carpet welcome for US-based Tesla and other companies globally.
So how it has done it is actually by reducing the import duty for a certain number of units for a certain number of years.
Now, you might be wondering why Tesla has not entered India yet. Why had the government not allowed Elon Musk to set up a gigafactory in India so far? And why has the Modi government suddenly decided to change its stance and allow cars to be imported now? My name is Shankar and I am going to help you learn the answer to all of these questions in this video. And we will start by understanding why Tesla has not entered India till this date. The biggest reason for this has been the high import duties on foreign cars imposed by the Indian government. Up until the new EV policy was announced recently, this was how completely built up cars imported to India were evaluated. The duty was applied to the CIF value of the car. This is the total value after adding the initial cost of the car, the insurance value and the freight cost. If the CIF value of the car is less than $40,000 or about 33 lakh rupees, then the import duty applied is literally 100%. On the other hand, if the value is less than $40,000, then the duty applied is 60%. Note here that this is completely built up cars only. For CKDs or completely knocked down kits, which are basically ready to assemble spare parts of the car, the duty is just 15%. Now, Tesla sells many car models in different price ranges like the Model S, Model X, Model Y and Model 3. The cheapest of these cars is the Model 3, whose long-range variant costs about $47,500 in the US or about 39 lakh rupees. If Elon Musk wanted to sell this car in India under the previous rules, it would sell for an insanely high price of 78 lakh rupees in the market. And keep in mind that this is the most affordable model of Tesla. The Tesla Model X Plate, for example, would cost nearly 1.6 crore rupees in India. So while this has clearly been the biggest reason why Elon Musk has avoided India so far, it is still not the only reason. You see, Tesla manufactures its cars in gigantic manufacturing facilities, which it calls gigafactories. Currently, Tesla has 6 gigafactories, of which 4 are in the US, 1 is in Berlin, Germany, and the final one is in Shanghai, China. Now, if and when the import duty was waived, Elon Musk wanted to import the Tesla cars to be sold in India from the China Gigafactory. The Shanghai Gigafactory has evolved into a crucial part of Tesla's manufacturing setup, accounting for a significant portion of the company's vehicle deliveries. Tesla wanted to use the same Shanghai Gigafactory to manufacture cars and export them to India, because financially it was the best decision for them rather than importing cars from the US or Germany. But the increasing tensions between India and China due to border issues, as well as the larger anti-China trade sentiment in the country, means that the government can simply not allow this to happen.
His interest is to manufacture Tesla car in China and to make it, sell it in India. But manufacturing in China and selling in India is not a digestible concept to all of us.
And finally, it is the GST rebate offered by the Government of India for EV cars. While the GST rate and cess on petrol and diesel cars is between 28% to 50%, the government offers a GST rebate on EV cars and charges a nominal GST of just 5%. While I will explain the reason for this GST rebate later in this video, note here that this GST rebate is not provided to imported EV cars, which would have included Tesla, making it even more difficult for Tesla to compete with the local EV players on price. So due to the high import duties, the government's no China stance, and the absence of GST rebate, it was almost impossible for Tesla to enter and compete in India. And for the longest time, Elon Musk has been trying to lobby the Indian government to waive this duty, which would then allow him to sell Tesla cars in India. He has met Prime Minister Modi at least twice to convince him to do the same, with the latest meeting happening in June 2023. If you made it this far, please subscribe to my channel. I promise my content will add value for you. Moving on. Now, at this point, you might be wondering why Tesla does not simply establish a manufacturing plant in India, right? Well, that's certainly an option Tesla was willing to explore. But Musk insisted that Tesla will not put a manufacturing plant in any location where we are not allowed first to sell and service cars. Setting up a gigafactory can cost up to $5 billion. And Musk does not want to make such a gigantic investment without testing the waters first. This was the stance until March 2024, when an announcement from the government suddenly changed the entire ballgame. The government announced that it was effectively waiving off the high duty on the import of EVs in India, subject to a set of terms and conditions. And pay attention here. As per the new EV policy, if the CIF value of a car is above $35,000, then the import duty to be paid on it would now be just 15%, while cars with a value below $35,000 will continue to pay a duty of 60% when imported. But there is a catch. In order to qualify for this duty waiver, a company would need to invest $500 million or roughly 4,150 crore rupees and set up a manufacturing facility here in India itself. Additionally, the company will have to ensure that it achieves a minimum domestic value addition of 25% by the third year and 50% by the fifth year from the date it receives the approval by the government. Domestic value addition basically means that the production of the parts used in the vehicle should be localized, so they should be produced or procured within India. If a company fulfills all these conditions, then it would be allowed to import about 5,000 cars every year for the next 5 years, if the investment is $500 million, and this import cap will be increased to 8,000 cars every year for the next 5 years if the investment is more than $781 million. Not just Tesla, but any company can get this waiver if they meet the requirements. So Modi ji is now basically saying that if you want to import EVs in India, then invest $500 million or more, set up a manufacturing facility that supports localized production, and then you will be allowed to import a fixed number of cars every year for the next 5 years. And this is an absolute game changer for companies like Tesla, and almost exactly what they were wishing for. For a multi-billion-dollar company like Tesla, committing an amount of $500 million would not be much of an issue, and they can finally tap into the third largest automobile market in the world. But now, the new question is, why did India have such a unique import restriction in the first place? And more importantly, what is changing now that the government has suddenly decided to promote these imports? You see, the reason why India has one of the highest import duties for cars in the world is because it has been a part of India's broader economic strategy to encourage local manufacturing, reduce import dependency, and support the domestic automotive industry. After independence, and even as late as the 1980s, the Indian automobile sector was heavily dependent on imports. It is only because of these protectionist policies that promote local production that India has been able to turn into the fourth largest automobile manufacturer in the world. Because of these high duties, imported vehicles become significantly more expensive than local vehicles, incentivizing consumers to purchase locally produced cars while also reducing our trade deficit. Makes sense, right? But then, why has the government suddenly decided to make an exception for EVs now? That is because of India's National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, by which it aims to achieve national fuel security by promoting electric vehicles in the country. I will explain in detail. India has a trade deficit, which means it spends more on imports than it earns from exports. For the month of February 2024 alone, India had an overall trade deficit of $18.7 billion. So the value of goods India bought from other countries exceeded the value of goods it sold to other countries by $18.7 billion. And the largest cost of India's imports was attributed to crude oil, with imports worth $11.42 billion in February 2024. So taking a long-term vision, India is rightly aiming to reduce the import of crude oil by eliminating petrol and diesel engines altogether. And a crucial part of pushing this plan would be to establish a very strong local EV infrastructure in our country. And the government realizes very well that this cannot be achieved without allowing global EV players to enter and compete in the Indian market. Hence, this new waiver in the import duty just for EVs. But this does not mean that the government has shunned local players like Tata, Because this new policy has actually been devised very carefully. Domestic EV players are not going to be impacted severely because of the high price point cutoff. Remember that the duty waiver will come into effect only if the value of the car is over $35,000. And even with a reduced duty, an EV with a CFI value of $35,000 in the US will cost more than 40 lakh rupees on the road in India. And to top this off, there is a maximum cap of 8,000 cars a year as well, which means that only a tiny, well-off segment of the public will actually buy these cars. Players like Tata and Mahindra will largely be immune to this for at least a few years, since most of their EV cars have an on-road price that is below 20 lakh rupees. Tesla or any other foreign company will not really be directly competing with the homegrown brands. So this is likely excellent news for Tesla, which will now be able to finally enter the Indian market, and for Tesla, this couldn't have come at a better time. The largest EV market in the world is not in the US, but in China. And while Tesla had enjoyed steady growth in sales in China so far, it is now facing a number of challenges in its growth. While Tesla has been able to successfully expand its manufacturing capacity, it recently lost its position as the top EV maker by sales to BYD, a China-based company. Its stock price has fallen by almost 35% this year, as it faces other hurdles as well, such as regulatory challenges with its autopilot and self-driving technologies, along with the rise of more affordable EV car options from other competitors in the US as well as in China. So entry into a new market might just be the exact thing that Tesla needs to unlock its next phase of growth. If you made it this far, please share this video with one person who you know is a fan of Tesla. Subscribe here and follow me on LinkedIn. The link is in the description below. Until I see you in the next video, goodbye.